Good evening everyone, Air Nostalgia out in my flat. This is actually my little office. We are having a terrible heat wave in Spain today, so super hot. It's just gone in the evening now, but probably still close to 40 degrees, so my forehead is looking a bit sweaty because it is quite hot. But I just want to give you guys a quick update on my beautiful HW50s, which has now been put back together. I do really appreciate everyone that's been following me on my channel and has been watching the progress and seeing what I've been doing on this gun. I've done quite a few posts. And yeah, look, finally back together, super happy with the results, but I just want to give you a quick walkthrough of what's happened. I've had a few bumps in the road too, so I didn't realize that actually this gun is obviously the newer version of the HW50s. We used to have the older one, which probably had a different stock, and the older HW50, I think this was pre-2015, it had a smaller piston. The piston was only 25 millimeters, whereas this one is 26. So, you know, I'd ordered the new piston, sealed all the seals, but I didn't realize that there were actually two different versions. And I wanted to start putting the gun together back together beginning of this week, but I realized there was absolutely no pressure in the piston. The piston was dropping right through, no air pressure obviously because the seal was 1 millimeter smaller, so there was no seal taking place. So yeah, I had to wait another week for the new piston to come, or the new piston seal to come. And yeah, everything came back together, so I thought, you know, last night I wanted to start working on it. I was expecting it to be a quick 15-20 minute job. You know, I deburred the gun, you'd seen what I've done, I deburred everything, I re-glued all of the edges, a lot of polishing, changed all the seals, got a really nice nylon top hat which fitted the spring really snugly, so that was going to take away a lot of the spring twang. And yeah, just general full overhaul on the gun. Also polished the sears of the record trigger, which is something I haven't really done before, so really the gun was ready to go back, everything prepared. You probably saw my last post on the pictures. But I had bumps in the road. It wasn't easy. It literally took me probably 3 hours to get everything sorted out. First problem was when everything was together, I just couldn't get the gun to engage. So I first thought I'd installed the record trigger incorrectly. I thought maybe the safety wasn't engaging. I was looking at loads of YouTube videos, super hot, sweating, grease everywhere, and I was getting quite frustrated. I was literally getting to the point I'd just sell the gun, get rid of it, get another one. And then when I took everything apart, I realized that actually the only change I'd done, other than fitting a brand new spring, which is the exact same length, I put in the new nylon, like a Teflon top hat on the top of the spring. And I actually realized what was happening is that top hat was probably only increasing the length of the whole system by probably 2 millimeters. However, within the spring, the top hat was almost 2 centimeters long. So what was happening was when the spring was compressing, the top hat was actually hitting the other end of the spring guide. So obviously it couldn't engage all the way. So quick fix, not a problem. I just took a small hacksaw and I shortened the sleeve by the normal spring guide by about 1.5 centimeters. So I just cut it off, filed it down, polished it, put it back in, gun cocked perfectly. What else? So yeah, also the other issue I had was for some reason on the HW50, it's got an interesting design. It's got like a kind of like a bayonet design, but it's also got these four little machine blocks that literally clip back in place. And they kind of keep the whole assembly secure, that's going to keep it together. And for some reason, 2 of those blocks just would not go back in. So I don't know, I just took them out wrong, maybe a bad fit, but I couldn't get those back in. And then once I put everything back together, you know, obviously I didn't put a lot of grease on this gun and everything being polished. I wanted to be kind of more of a dry finish, but I wanted everything to be gliding, to be smooth. And I noticed that once again, I had that grinding sensation, which was super frustrating. You know, I thought, put all this work in the gun, just when I was cocking it, was grinding. And I thought, really, you know, it couldn't be the piston, because I know what I did is actually, on the piston, you probably saw before, it had scratch marks on the top. I actually beveled that down, so I actually took it down as an angle, polished it. So almost if it was going to be putting a bit of pressure on top of the inside of the compression chamber, it would slide. You know, a bit of moly grease around it would slide. But this was making a proper grinding noise again, and I thought this was really strange. Took the whole gun apart, and what I'd done before, probably what I mentioned in one of my first videos, was that a lot of the grinding on this gun that happened at the start was because Weihrauch decided to revamp the cocking arm and system in this gun to prevent gulling, because gulling was quite a big problem with these. All of the guns, like the HW30, the HW50, they've got like a linkage on the cocking arm. It tends to gull on the outside of the compression chamber. So in order to remove that, what they did is they put a Teflon slide within the cocking arm that was under spring pressure. And what this did, obviously, it prevented the arm from hitting the compression chamber. However, it also just directed the force somewhere else. So what happened is that was then pushing up against the top of the piston, which was obviously creating grinding inside the chamber. So what I've done is I decided to take out the spring. I'm just going to leave the Teflon guide there, so it's not putting any pressure. But what I noticed is exactly what a friend of mine, also someone who's always on my channel, Chuck, out there in South Dakota. I really appreciate all the engagement we have. But Chuck also mentioned that he did the same thing on his gun, and he noticed that it was rattling. And because obviously with this gun, it's got a different setup on the cocking shoe. It doesn't have a separated cocking shoe. So what tends to happen is there's obviously a bit of space now between the cocking shoe, the inside of the piston sleeve, and the arm itself. It's got the cocking shoe that's on part of that arm. So what's happening, there was obviously movement, and as soon as I picked the gun, it was rattling. And I'm a bit ADHD, I've got a bit of OCD as well, and I don't want to have a German air rifle that rattles. So I was like, this is not going to work. So I took the whole thing apart again, and I thought, I'm going to put the spring back in, but I'm going to remove half the spring. So actually I shortened the spring, cut off like 2 or 3 coils of that spring, so it was really, really soft. Because what was actually happening is I realized that the spring, the grinding was actually taking place between the, I don't want to take the gun apart now, but it was actually taking place between the top of the arm where the cocking shoe goes into the cylinder, into that groove, and it was actually pushing on top of it. So it was actually grinding taking place between the cocking shoe and the inside of the sleeve. And this was something I polished out too, but it was obviously maybe it just needed to be worn in, so it was grinding. So I thought, take out the spring, cut it in half, because I don't want a rattling noise either. And yeah, so look, long story short, and sorry I'm rambling quite a bit, I got the spring back in, I shortened it, so there's a lot less pressure that was actually being put onto that cocking arm in the system to obviously reduce that. And lo and behold, I put a drop of Molly paste inside. I don't want to go crazy with Molly. I don't want this gun to ever diesel again, so I thought it was going to be easy there. Actually, I polished it out again, the grooves. I was doing all of this last night while having the gun in pieces again, and yeah, put it back together, and now it's working really well. So Chuck, thanks a lot also for actually commenting on that point about removing the spring. I know a lot of people think that removing the spring is a quick fix. However, it does actually it does cause a few problems, because obviously it takes away that space, it creates a rattle, and yeah, I don't want to rattle on a German gun. So this actually happened in the past. That's why I put the spring back in, and I thought, let's see how it goes. But obviously, as soon as I put everything back together, cocked the gun, it was grinding. It was a horrible grinding noise. So look, gun is back together now. It looks amazing. Super, super happy with it. It's a top quality air rifle. Actually got my crony here too. I've got some pellets. I've got a nice piece of thick wood behind there, which is going to stop it from going through. I don't know how the camera is actually going to pick up this. But also the one thing I've noticed straight away, I've shot probably 20 shots through it. Solid thud, no spring twang at all, and I think that's because I put the top hat in there and the spring guard is tightened. No dieseling, much smoother firing cycle, and the power was actually also pretty much spot on, so I'm pretty impressed. For a new spring, this is probably going to take a bit more time to bed in. Cocking effort, I must say the cocking effort on this 50 is still pretty tough, considering it's only a 16 joule air rifle. I think it's because it's got the double linkage. I find my HW80, my Pro Sport, much easier to cock. But the good thing now, super smooth, no grinding. It does feel a bit dry though, because it's got a lot less grease inside. But listen to this. So I'll put the crony on, and I'll show the crony the screen. I hope it picks it up. So these are normal 8.44 grain pellets. But listen to this. Super smooth. Super smooth. Really happy with that. Just going to do one shot for you guys so you can maybe hear it, and I'll show you the crony too. Just going to pick it up. Solid. Safety off. Perfect. Put that down. Look at that. Perfect. So it's probably still going to pick up a bit of power. I don't know if you can see that. That is going in at 232 meters per second, around 15 joules. So it's probably going to pick a bit of power as it beds in again. But super happy with that. I don't know if you see that. 14.9 joules, 15 joules. Should be running at 16 out the box, but that also depends on the pellets too. So super happy with that. Yeah, so nice success story. I think definitely for this gun moving forward, I might not even put a scope on it. I want to try and practice a bit more shooting open sights, and I think this is an ideal gun to do it. So really happy, as you can hear, listen to this. Super smooth. So really happy with that, guys. Thanks for stopping by. I want to wish all of you a super weekend. Enjoy your Saturday, enjoy your Sunday tomorrow, and I hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.